Hello guys. Today we're going to talk about The Conjuring 3, or The Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It. They don't do 3. I kind of wish they did, to be honest. Um, and yeah, I don't know when this is being released. It's either going to be released in between my reviews of 1 and 2, or after 2, one of the two. So if you're watching this, if you already seen the first two, then I'm just, well, what's the proper wording for this? Just to clarify, this is the third one, so if you want to watch my reviews in order, you might have to wait for two. It will be coming out soon if it hasn't already. But if you don't care, then that's fine by me too. Um, so a little bit about this thing here that we're going to talk about today. This one came out this year, 2021. It's rated R. It's hour 52 long. Um, has 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb with about 55,000-ish user votes. It has 53% on Metacritic with 39 critics stars. Patrick Wilson, who was in, other Conjuring, Vera Farmiga, who was in other... I mentioned them in what they've been in the Conjuring reviews, so there's that. Director's different in this one, though. It's Michael Chavez, and he directed The Curse of La Llorona, which is a movie in the Conjuring universe. That James Wan, he didn't return for this one. This movie has 56% on Rotten Tomatoes by critics with 226 critics, and 84% by audience people with 4,800 user audience people. And the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is The Devil Made Me Do It represents a come down for the core of the Conjuring films, although Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson keep the audience invested. In the audience consensus is it may not contain many surprises for fans of the franchise, but this threequel more than makes up for it with another scary, tense adventure for the ghost-busting Warrens. Now, I'm going to be honest here, this one isn't as good as the first two. Is it terrible? No. I don't think it's terrible by any stretch, but this movie, the biggest reason this movie isn't as good, and it's a big reason and a half. The big one is director. I don't like. I think this movie desperately needed James Wan's vision, because this movie kind of feels like it lacks focus. It doesn't. It lacks direction, in my opinion. Because this movie is based on another famous case they worked on where they tried to prove the existence of, possession in court. But here's the problem: the trailers and everything made this movie looks like it's going to be more on the court case side of filmmaking, which actually wouldn't be a bad idea considering how interesting a topic would be to try to prove that kind of thing. But the problem is that in real life, um, in real life, it didn't really work out like that. So I guess what happens in the movie is that they don't focus on that hardly at all. Like the court case, like it's mentioned early on in the film, and then they do a little bit at the end. But a huge majority of the film is exploring what possessed him, which is fine. But it feels like they forgot. Wait, isn't this going to be a court case? Wasn't And here's the thing: the advertisers, now I think about it, they didn't do a good job of advertising as The Conjuring 3, which is sad because here's the thing: this one came out 5 years after the second one. And for me, it's like, man, if you were going to come back to this, you needed to do a better job because I don't think unless you're a hardcore fan, I think at this point, based on the Conjuring hate that rose over the years, based on how influential it was on people making shitty copycats, I think at this point people were just done with these kind of films. Now, I will give them credit. They don't do the haunted house routine in this one. They try to do something a lot different in this in a lot of ways. So I'll give them credit for that, but it feels unfocused. That's my biggest problem. I think the biggest problem I have is that in my opinion, this wasn't a good story to adapt for them, because this is their success in the stories wasn't necessarily proving whether their existence or not, because they're going to get arguments. You can't really do that. The point of the stories was to help people. And I feel like this movie couldn't decide whether they wanted to stick with that or legit try to prove that they're real. And I felt like they decided to tease it a bit, but they never went full on for it. And it's just like, why tease? You know? I do. In terms of bad guys, this isn't a weak bad guy. This is shrouded in mystery, like person. But to be honest, I don't hate the idea of it, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel very. I don't know. I do think it's definitely some tense moments, but I just feel like it wasn't as. I'm not gonna lie, that haunted house shtick, I kind of missed it in this movie, which is not good because the slight criticism of the movie too was the fact that it was the same shtick, but they change it here, but I don't know if it's better because now it just feels like it kind of lost the horror element a little bit. It felt more like a thriller. And these movies are straight up horror movies. They have to be. And this one just doesn't quite hit that. I kind of wish it did. And I think the biggest reason why, and this is, what was the other half that I was talking about? Oh yeah, the other half was the fact that they was shit. I can't believe it'll come to my head. Maybe I already mentioned it, or I'm about to. But that's kind of the thing with this movie is the fact that this, and actually this is to have the reason the story, and I did mention it. The story they pick, I don't think I wouldn't have picked this one to do. I think I think if they look at their entire case, because here's the thing: if they needed to stretch some truths, okay, fair, but they really, and that's the thing. This movie, I felt like they kind of jumped the shark a little bit because I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be semi-base because the first two films, even though they weren't completely correct in real life, of course, it still felt like it was based on what they were doing or would actually do. This one just felt like they were just said, "Fuck it, we're just gonna go batshit." It kind of jumped the shark for me a little bit in terms of like who they were chasing after or anything instead of focusing on the possession itself necessarily. It's like, well, how did it get possessed? Well, to figure out that, we have to investigate this, then we have to investigate that, and who's this, who's that. It's just a never-ending thing. In the first two movies, it wasn't that complex. It was pretty straightforward, and it's just like you're making us think too much here, movie. We're not here to really. I don't know. It's not terrible, but it's just like it kind of loses its horror edge a little bit. I don't mind a good horror mystery, but this one just didn't fit. Because the thing with these two, the Warrens, is that they're I wouldn't say they help people about the possessions and all that, but I wouldn't necessarily call them detectives in a traditional sense, though. And this movie kind of tries to turn them into kind of loose detectives, and I don't know if that's the right way. And to be honest, it just doesn't feel like. And the reason why it feels like it jumps the shark is for reasons I can't really say. But let's just say the villain is not exactly the same as the first two villains in the first two movies. So it kind of creates this thing where it just feels like they're trying to make the story more cinematic than realistic. It doesn't feel as balanced. And yeah, overall, this film isn't as good. Is it terrible? No. Is it still worth a watch if you're a fan of the series or general horror movies? Yeah, it is. But to be honest, I think they've done. I think they need to find a different guy to direct these because if they're gonna go back to the Ed Warren the Warrens, they need they need to get some flagships going. Because here's the thing, their Conjuring universe, because Lorena didn't do good at all. The Nun did average at best. The Annabelle movies, the three, they're either not great, okay, and then the second one I think did incredibly well. But as far as I remember, in terms of looking up numbers. But really, if they're going to keep this universe up, start they have to start putting up the quality here. They have to start getting a little bit creative, and they have to start. I mean, hell, I just watched as of this recording, um, the first Fear Street movie on Netflix, and that one was a little bit more imaginative. And what I liked about the early first two Conjuring movies, I felt like they really hinted at this being this big thing, this universe to explore. And so far, we've only really explored three characters.